Welcome to RIX Europe. My name is Peter Kleppe. I'm delighted to have as my guest Nikola Zukalova. She's with the think tank EGIC, the Euro Gulf Information Center. And today we're going to discuss the situation in the Red Sea. So welcome, Nikola.
Thank you for having me.
So for years, we have seen trouble there with the Houthi rebels in a conflict. But recently, we saw Israel striking the Houthis after the Houthis had managed to murder a person in Tel Aviv by sending a rocket all the way from Yemen, where the Houthis are operating. So what should we expect next? Is there going to be escalation?
Well, so the situation in the Red Sea has been exacerbating since October last year, with Houthis intensified attacks on vessels off Yemen's coast and several attacks on Israel as well, most of which were until recently intercepted, which of course drove the prices of shipping in the area up as well. But the recent exchange between the Houthis and Israel certainly represented a significant escalation of an already tense situation. It was the first time the Houthis managed to strike a residential building in Tel Aviv from Yemen, which in turn prompted Israel to respond with an overwhelming force to deter the Houthis from further attacks, conducting the first direct airstrike in Yemen on Houthis' weapons storage and oil facilities at the Hodeidah port, which is known to be a key hub for smuggling of people and weapons, in fact. Mostly those weapons come from Iran, but there have been also reports about weapons from North Korea and Russia, for example. And the exchange certainly increased the risk of a wider regional conflict. The Houthis have been using the war in Gaza as a pretext for its attacks in the Red Sea, and in order to boost their support and legitimacy both domestically and internationally, and also to kind of consolidate control over the northern Yemen, where they have been tightening the grip on the local population. Thinking about the neighboring Gulf countries, they are certainly concerned about further escalation and want to avoid it. We saw after the airstrike that Saudi Arabia has sought to distance itself from it and warned that it would not allow any entity basically to violate its airspace. However, it's also, I think, important to know that there was not much support for the Houthis in the Arab Gulf either, because with Iran's support, they have attacked Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates with thousands of drones and missiles over the past decade.
And it looks like maybe now Western Europe is waking up to the fact that this is not just a problem for the Gulf states or for Israel. I mean, a lot of supplies for Western Europe go through the Red Sea. So if ships are no longer secure there, they have to take the longer and more expensive route via Cape de Good Hope in Africa. And this, of course, will make the inflation problem in Europe even worse than it already is. So Iran seems to be the spider in the web here. Is Iran going to maybe reflect now that, okay, maybe we should not overplay our hand, we should not drag Europe into this conflict?
That is, it's interesting question. I mean, the Red Sea is a key artery for global trade. Around, as you said, around a fifth of EU's imports and exports pass through it, which is why it's actually perfect for Iran to use it to exert pressure on the international community. The Houthis in Yemen and Iran together now control two of the world's maritime choke points on the opposite sides of the Arabian Peninsula, the Bab al-Mandeb and the Strait of Hormuz, which are crucial waterways for global trade. And Iran has repeatedly threatened closing it down. So the strategic importance of Yemen cannot really be understated. With its proxies in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and elsewhere, I think that Tehran has Tehran has now access to the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea as well. It has effectively encircled its main regional adversaries, Israel as well as the Arab Gulf monarchies, which of course has also implications for European security. However, it must be remembered that the West has turned a blind eye to the Houthis and Iran's network of proxies, attacking its interests and allies and undermining regional security for years. The Houthis' threat is not new. It has been evolving over the years. They began attacking ships off Yemen's coast nearly 10 years ago in 2015. And the international community's pressure on the Saudi-led coalition to stop their military campaign against the Houthis in Yemen effectively gave the Houthis the control of the Hodeidah port in 2018 with the Stockholm Agreement. And a year later, in fact, the Houthis attacked oil infrastructure in Saudi Arabia and cut off 5% of global oil supplies. Also, numerous vessels have been attacked and hijacked in recent years, but there was no decisive response at that time. So I think that Iran and its proxies really learned from those past experiences that they can get away with a lot and not really face serious consequences.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy that basically a group of pirates, which the Houthis are, control a big port, which they can use to, to receive all kinds of dangerous long-range rockets and weaponry, I mean, to kill citizens in other countries far away, like Israel. So, I mean, and maybe is there going to be a game changer if Donald Trump would be elected president again in November?
Well, I think, as we all know, it's a little bit difficult to predict what Donald Trump will or will not do. But if his first presidency is any indication, Trump could be more inclined to use military power to attack Iranian capabilities across the region. But the US will still face a challenge in trying to restore their standing in the region. I mean, Trump put the Houthis on the terror list before leaving his office. But one of the first moves of the Biden administration was to remove the Houthis from the terror list, actually, without any real concessions from the Houthis or Iran. And with the Red Sea attacks earlier this year in January, the Biden administration partially returned the Houthis again to the terror list and said that they could be removed again if they stopped the attacks in the Red Sea, which of course did not work. And it further actually damaged the perception of the United States and its commitment to security in the region. And it also unsettled some of the US allies in the region that have faced Houthi attacks for years. I mean, the United Arab Emirates urged the United States unsuccessfully to return the Houthis to the list already in 2022 after the Houthis strike on Abu Dhabi killed several people. So it will be a challenge. It's difficult to predict what is going to happen, but there might be more movement on that. But just one last point, I think it's important to highlight that none of the, despite the escalation, that none of the actors involved seem to be interested in getting into a wider, open regional war. I think that what we are likely to see more going forward is just the continued tit-for-tat attacks across the region, with an involvement of course, Iran's proxies, rather than an open full-scale war.
All right, all very interesting and definitely something that we will follow. So thank you very much, Nikola Zukalova.
My pleasure. Thank you.